This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang. Hey gang, and welcome back. My voice is almost back to normal, and we get to celebrate today because it's my birthday. I've got a great game lined up for you, with my friends playing a bunch of the brand new commanders. Felix is playing Slimefoot Squee, and it's built around reanimating, keeping Ignoble Hierarch, Nature's Lore, Mirror March, Etali Primal Conqueror, Soul Ring, Foreboding Ruins, and Involving Wilds. Seb has built Zimone Dina, keeping Slimefoot the Stowaway, Island, Strip Mine, Rampant Growth, Calatus Trader of Get, Demir Aqueduct, and a Constant Mists. Maxim is playing Katilda Lier, keeping a Breeding Pool, a Forest, an Island, Yavimaya Coast, Eldamri's Call, Heron's Grace Champion, and a Harrow. Marie is actually rocking the black and white precon, and she's playing Brimaz, Blight of Oreskos. She keeps an Ichor Elixir, a Plains, a Wayfarer's Bauble, a Swamp, Command Tower, Go for the Throat, and Ancient Stone Idol. Felix wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays an Evolving Wilds, cracking it to find a forest as he passes. Seb just plays a Command Tower. Maxim draws and plays out a tapped Breeding Pool. Marie plays a Plains and casts a Wayfarer's Bauble, passing. Felix draws and plays a Fabled Passage. He then taps a green for a Noble Hierarch. He then cracks the passage to go and find a mountain and passes. Seb plays an Island for turn and casts Rampant Growth to find a basic, passing. Max plays Yavimaya Coast and passes after that. Marie's got a Swamp for turn and leaves a 2-mana open for her Bauble as she passes turn. Felix plays a Foreboding Ruins which comes in tapped, and then casts a Nature's Lore to ramp some more, and once he's done finding a land, casts Soul Ring and passes. Seb plays a Strip Mine and casts the bane of Felix's existence with a Calatus, passing after that. Maxim draws and plays an Island. He passes, and during his end step, Marie cracks the Wayfarer's Bauble to find a basic. Marie draws and plays a Swamp. She then casts Brimaz and passes. Felix draws and has enough mana for a turn 4 Etali Primal Conqueror. This has everyone exiling their top cards of their library until they hit a non-land card, which gets them an Eternal Witness, a Splendid Reclamation, a Ranger's Path, and a Psychosis Crawler. He casts all of them, finding some lands from Ranger's Path and returning some lands with the Reclamation. He then gets to bring back Nature's Lore thanks to the Eternal Witness, and passes. Seb draws, playing Scalding Tarn, and cracking it to find a Breeding Pool. In response, Max casts Harrow while Seb is searching for his land, and Seb pays 2 life to have the Breeding Pool come in untapped. He then plays Zimone Dina, and Max responds to that by casting Eldamri's Call. Max goes to find a Recruiter of the Guard, and Zimone Dina then resolve. Max draws and plays a Temple Garden untapped, taking 2. He casts the Recruiter, and goes to find Niambi Esteemed Speaker. He passes once he's done searching. Marie draws and plays a Command Tower. She plays a new Mana Rock with an Ichor Elixir and passes. Felix draws and everyone loses 1 from the Psychosis Crawler. He then cracks the Fabled Passage again, and has enough mana to cast Slimefoot Squee, which makes him a Saproling token. Going to combat, he swings a Tally at Max, and the Psychosis Crawler and Witness at Seb. Seb blocks the Witness with Zimone Dina, and gets to make a 2/2 zombie token off Calatus when the Witness dies, and gets exiled. After that, Felix casts the Nature's Lore, and then Cultivate, and cracks his Evolving Wilds to basically just go find all of his lands. Seb draws and plays an Island. He then plays just Slimefoot and passes. Max has an island for turn and casts his commander pairing with Katilda and Lier coming in. He then passes, and on his end step, Marie casts Go for the Throat and targets a Tally, which gets destroyed and then exiled, and Seb makes a zombie with Kalitas. Marie plays a Temple of Silence, scrying 1. She then plays out a Darksteel Splicer, incubating 7 off of Brimaz, and then makes 3 3/3 indestructible golem tokens as it enters. She passes after that. Felix draws, and everyone loses 1. He plays a Forest and casts Mirror March. After that, he passes. Seb draws for turn and plays a Homeward Path. He then casts 3 visits, going to find an overgrown tomb, and passes. Max draws and plays a Forest. He casts Niambi and gives Harrow flashback with Katilda and Lier's trigger. And then Niambi enters, bouncing the Recruiter of the Guard back to his hand, and he gains 3 life. Max then flashes back Harrow, sacrificing a Forest to find a new Forest and a Plains card. Max then casts a Beast Whisperer, which isn't human, and passes. Marie draws and plays a Plains. She then casts a Phyrexian Gargantua, losing 2, drawing 2, and making an Incubator token with 6+1/+1 counters onto it, thanks to Brimaz. She then transforms the earlier Incubator into a 7/7 and moves to combat. She swings the token at Felix and the 3 golems at Seb. Felix takes 7, while Seb blocks 2 of them with Zimone and Dina and Kalitas, but takes 3 and then gains it back from Kalitas having lifelink. After that, she passes. Felix draws, and everyone takes 1 from the Crawler trigger. He then casts a Sepulchral Primordial and flips off Mirror March. The coin comes up tails, so he only gets 1 Primordial, which has no targets. Going to combat, Felix swings the Psychosis Crawler at Seb, and Seb responds by activating Homeward Path to give it back to Marie and removes it from combat. Felix then passes, and on his end step, Seb makes a Saproling token from Slimefoot, and then sacrifices it to Zimone Dina. This lets him draw a card and puts a Forest into play, and then he gets to draw another card, and makes Felix lose 2. Seb draws for turn and plays a Zendikar's Royal. He's got no land to follow it up with though, and has to pass. Maxim draws and plays Command Tower. He then casts the Recruiter of the Guard again, and this time gives Eldamri's Call flashback thanks to his commanders. He then draws from the Beast Whisperer, and as it enters, gets to search from the guard and goes to find a Spark Double. He then flashes back Eldamri's Call, and this time tutors up Angel of Glory's Rise. Max then follows up with Baron, drawing a card and bouncing Niambi back to hand. After that, Max draws a card in his end step from Baron and passes to Marie. Marie draws for turn, and everyone loses 1 from her Crawler now that it's back on her side. She then plays a Plains for turn and goes to combat. She swings everything at Max, and flashes in an Ancient Stone Idol to incubate for 10. Max double blocks Brimaz with Katilda and Lier and the Recruiter, and double blocks the Psychosis Crawler with Baron and the Beast Whisperer, but still takes 20 from the rest. Marie decides to assign damage to the Recruiter and Baron, while Brimaz and Crawler die as well. These creatures are then exiled, with Seb making 4 zombie tokens. In her post-combat main phase, she casts an Arcane Signet, and still has enough mana to recast Brimaz. She then moves to her end step, and gets to proliferate from Brimaz before passing turn. Felix draws and plays a Forest. He then plays Living Death, and floats a black mana from the Hierarch before losing it. Seb responds to the spell by activating Zimone Dina, and sacrifices Kalitas to draw 2 and put a Dimir Aqueduct into play, and bounce it twice. No one has any creatures in graveyards, so the Living Death becomes mostly a board wipe and then brings back Kalitas. Felix then plays a Timeless Witness, and he flips for the March, coming up heads twice and making 2 copies. This has him bringing back Living Death, Nature's Lore, and Cultivate. And once that's done, Felix casts Living Death again. This brings back most of the old board, and Felix gets to flip a lot for the Mirror Marches. He flips Tails immediately on the Hierarch and the Sepulchral Primordial, but does get heads on Slimefoot and Squee 3 times in a row. This has him making 3 more Saproling tokens, and Felix actually sends the original copy of Slimefoot and Squee to his graveyard from the Legendary rule. He also gets the Primordial trigger, bringing back Seb's Kalitas, and Felix then moves to combat. He swings the hasty Slimefoot and Squee at Seb, dealing 3 commander damage. Felix then passes, and on his end step, Seb makes a Saproling token of his own by activating his Slimefoot. Seb draws, and replays Zimone Dina. He then plays Skyshroud Claim, getting 2 basic forests and putting them into play. This gets him 2 elemental tokens, and he then plays a Dimir Aqueduct, bouncing it back to his hand, and making a 3rd elemental before passing turn. Max draws, and plays an Alchemist's Refuge. He then leaves up his mana, passing to Marie. Marie draws, and plays a Swamp. She then transforms her 2 Incubators before playing a Scytheclaw. She follows that up with a Despark on Kalitas, and then goes to combat. She swings the 3 Golems and the Ancient Stone Idol at Max, and the Incubators and Gargantua at Felix. Felix chumps the 3 creatures with 2 Saproling tokens and his Hierarch, and Max flashes in a Heron's Grace Champion. He then flashes in Nyambi, bouncing the champion to gain 4, and then flashes that back in again. Max draws 3 cards in total, and has enough to block the Golem tokens with the champion, Nyambi, and Katilda Lier. He gains 11 life, and then takes 12 damage, net losing 1, but his commanders live thanks to the champion's buff. Her combat step not as good as she'd hoped, Marie then passes. Felix draws and plays a Swamp. He plays an Unmarked Grave, putting up Molten Primordial into his graveyard, and then sacrifices a Saproling token to bring back Slimefoot and Squee and the Primordial as well. Felix then gets his Mirror March triggers, but has a streak of bad luck as he fails both flips. The Primordial then takes the Ancient Stone Idol, Zimone Dina, and the Beast Whisperer. He then activates Zimone Dina, sacrificing Slimefoot, and gets to draw 2 and put 2 lands into play, and this time has Marie get drained for 2. Felix then follows up with a Sukur Tribe Elder, and strangely enough is successful 5 times in a row, making 5 token copies of Steve. Moving to combat, Felix swings everything at Marie except for Steve Force 1, which goes at Max. Marie chumps the Sepulchral Primordial with her Germ token from the Scytheclaw, and the Molten Primordial with the Darksteel Splicer, but still takes 14, while Max takes 5. After combat, Felix sacrifices the Steve army to go and find 5 basics. And then has Slimefoot and Squee come back from his graveyard, and brings back the original Sukur Tribe Elder. Mirror March makes a token copy of Slimefoot and Squee, and another Sukur Tribe Elder, with Felix sacrificing the original Slimefoot and Squee to the Legendary rule, but he still gets to make a Saproling token. Seb draws and plays a Lotus Cobra. He then plays a Thornbite Staff, and equips it to Zimone Dina. He then plays a Dimir Aqueduct, bouncing itself back to his hand, and he gets to make a mana from the Lotus Cobra, and makes an Elemental token. Seb sacrifices the Elemental token to Zimone Dina, drawing 2, and gets to put the Aqueduct into play twice, making 2 more Elementals, 2 more mana, and drains Max for 2. Zimone and Dina then untap from the Thornbite Staff as well, which will let him draw his library basically, and make near infinite Elementals and mana. He then plays a Scroll Rack, which will let him put his whole deck back and recycle it again, and at this point the table scoops from near infinite mana and tokens, not to mention that Seb has announced he's looking for a drain creature, which he has in his deck. Game review time. So it was a lot of fun to see all these brand new commanders doing their thing, and I think that everyone actually got to showcase kind of what the deck wanted to do. In Maxim's case, it wasn't particularly impactful, but he was casting human spells, which allowed him to get flashback on his other spells. He had some pretty interesting synergies, and a lot of ways to bounce humans back to his hand and then recast them to some kind of advantage. Despite all that drawing, he just didn't get many of his key cards, so it just seemed like he was spinning his wheels. Considering Marie was playing a precon deck, I think she was doing incredibly well. Those incubated tokens were massive, and once she started transforming them, things got really aggressive. I was also really impressed with that Splicer. 7 mana to get 5 bodies, 3 of which are indestructible, seems like crazy good value. I didn't even realize that Slimefoot Squee was a deck until Felix pulled it out, and I'm kind of in love with the idea of Jund Reanimator. Don't get me wrong, Prosh is still my number 1, but it might be fun to spice things up a bit, with a different style and a different deck. Seb's Zimone Dina deck was kind of surprisingly good. Kalitas in his opening hand was particularly powerful against Felix, and it seemed like he just hung back and got decent amounts of value and a ramp until he was able to combo off, which, is a winning strategy. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., Multizone, Original Magic Art, and Alter Sleeves. But it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.